Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation with PS Off, and PS Off just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, 2025 AUG 13 is the latest version of PS Off. And with this update, there's some bug fixes and also improvements. Now, from my understanding, these are not huge changes, but at the same time, they are some smaller changes that may help some games progress a little bit further. For example, Red Dead Redemption 2 is now said to show an intro screen before it ultimately crashes. PS Off is still pretty early on in terms of overall emulation capability, but at the same time, it is making progress in leaps and bounds, and things are getting better. If you're interested in it and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. And speaking about PlayStation emulation, but going back one generation and talking about PS3 emulation, and here we are talking about PS3 emulation with ChonkyStation 3. And ChonkyStation 3 seems to be making significant progress. And I would say, although it's got an interesting name, it's a real emulator. It's not fake at all. There's a brand new video up on YouTube that I'd recommend checking out. We can see that frame rates are not necessarily perfect just yet. But at the same time, it is booting and playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I wouldn't necessarily call this game playable, and there are some serious graphical issues. But at the same time, I would say this is pretty big progress. Now, the developer behind ChonkyStation 3 says it's a work in progress and it can currently boot a few simple commercial games, and that it's a hobby project they're developing for fun and to learn, and it should not be used to actually play games. At least not for now. And I would say the at least not for now is one of the most important statements on all of this, because with the progress I'm seeing here, I'm thinking more and more people will want to check out ChonkyStation 3. Next up, we're shifting from PC to Android and talking about a bunch of different emulators on Android from Robert Broglia. Now, you may be familiar with some of these. For example, SNES 9X EX Plus is hugely popular over on Android with over 10 million downloads. And Robert Broglia has a whole bunch of other emulators. Most of them are paid. However, they are based on free and open source emulators, and these ones in specific, if you're not willing to support the developer and pick them up on the Google Play Store, they are available on GitHub. So pretty much all of these emulators have been updated to version 1.5.83, and all of them are listed individually over on GitHub. And if we take a look here for the improvements, there are a number of them. In fairness, I would say the end user probably wouldn't notice many of these changes. But for example here for gbc.emu, it got a little bit more accurate by fixing the sound input rate calculation. And again, if you're interested and wanted to learn more about any of this stuff, links are in the description below. Next up, we're talking about Resident Evil, and I would take this rumor with a grain of salt. It is a rumor, and I believe this is the source of the rumor. I've seen it being reported on a whole bunch of different places. But anyways here, I guess the next remakes are going to be Resident Evil Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0. And they're said to be releasing in 2027, 2028. Unfortunately, we've got no idea if this is true. I've got no idea what game would be coming out, and I've got no idea when or if it'll ever be announced. We're going to have to wait and see on this one, like many of the rumors out there. But I have seen this being reported in a bunch of different places, and sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. And speaking about smoke and fire, but maybe not in the way that you're thinking, next up here, we're talking about Marvel Rivals. And there's a very interesting interview up on YouTube right now with the creative director of the game. And, well, one of these questions is, it was unexpected, and even more unexpected that they actually answered it. So if I scroll down here and take a look at 11:37, it was timestamped. There is the question. And interestingly here, it's not really a true answer. It's more of a non-answer. But at a high level here, the creative director of the game thanks people for enjoying the artwork in the game. I mean, here is some of the response. And based on the translations, he says, "I'm very grateful these designs have been well received by the majority of players." To be honest with you, I must have been living under a rock or something because I didn't realize that Marvel Rivals was considered a certain type of game. I'm going to try to not open a can of worms on this one, but Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and please keep it PG rated. Next up, we're talking about a game on Kickstarter called CopperStorm. This game is headed to the Sega Mega Drive, SNES, and Neo Geo. Taking a look at its funding, they were asking for like 50,000 euros, and they're already at 168,000 euros. So they're over three times their goal here. Funding is open for another 24-ish hours, give or take, so there is still time to hop on this one. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a digital version that is going to be released. It all seems like it's going to be cartridges. Anyways, after hitting over $150,000 in funding, they do say that CopperStorm will feature run and gun sequences, and it looks pretty interesting. I'm not going to lie here, although I'm a huge fan of physical games, and I think the pricing is reasonable for their tiers here for the physical game, including the physical game box and artwork and manual and all that stuff. I'm kind of disappointed there is no ROM backing option, because I would have loved to have backed this one just for a ROM, just to load up on my phone and play somewhere. Maybe that's counterintuitive to what they're trying to do, but I don't know. At the same time here, I'm a big fan of ROMs. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. And speaking about stuff coming out in the future, next up here, we're talking about R-Type Delta HD Boosted. If you're a fan of shoot 'em ups, you might be a fan of this announcement here. This game is being released on November 20th of this year. Unfortunately, I don't have a price for this game just yet, but it is listed up on Steam here as coming soon, and it's available to be wishlisted. And on a side note here, in the same vein, if you're a fan of this kind of game, then you might be a fan that Gradius Origins has launched on Steam. It's launched very recently on August 6th here to a very positive review score. And speaking about shmups or shoot 'em ups or subscribe to Mr. Sujano, however you wanted to interpret that, but taking the M up out of shoot and talking about a shooting game or first-person shooter here. PubG, if you're a fan of PubG on PlayStation 4 or Xbox, last-gen consoles, you're not going to be a big fan of this announcement. So this announcement is right up over on the PubG website, and basically they're ending support for PS4 and Xbox One for this game and transitioning to PS5 and Xbox Series X and S only, and also PC and also still mobile. I would argue that end of life for this game is happening pretty fast. They're ending support on November 13th of this year, so just in a couple of months. And unfortunately here, if you are on Xbox One or PlayStation 4, it doesn't even seem like you'll be able to play the game in offline mode. Not that you can do a whole lot anyway there. They say after the live server maintenance on November 13th, PUBG console will only be available on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. PUBG Battlegrounds will no longer be downloadable or playable on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And for the big question here in terms of refunds, if you've spent money in the game and now can no longer play it, this also, I would say, does not bode well. They say refunds for Battlegrounds Plus and PUBG Battlegrounds will be handled in accordance with each platform's refund policy and procedures. For more details, please contact the customer support team of your respective platforms. So it seems as if refunds are probably not going to be a thing. And as for why they made this change, they did provide some insight, but I would argue it may not be the full picture, and we'll get to that in just a second. They say here as PUBG console supports crossplay between platforms. Fairness across all platforms was one of our top priorities. With that in mind, our goal is to provide a stable 60 FPS experience across all platforms. To account for differences in hardware performance, Xbox Series X will offer selectable options, such as resolution mode and performance mode. As mentioned earlier, the transition to current-gen consoles is not only aimed at providing a more stable environment, but also at preparing for larger updates in the future. It marks an important step forward for the long-term growth of PUBG console, and it will allow us to respond more swiftly to the evolving needs of the console ecosystem. I would say that is part of the answer. The other answer I would probably say here is maybe it wasn't financially feasible to continue supporting it for Xbox One and PS4. Maybe in terms of dollars, the juice may not have been worth the squeeze. Think about it this way. If they're spending a lot in development to continue to support the game and maybe finding ways to make it still run better on PS4 and Xbox One, but PS4 and Xbox One people are not paying for stuff in the game, then it's technically costing them money to continue on supporting it. And maybe that's what they're really getting at here. I mean, yes, they're making the argument that the current-gen consoles can support the game at 60 FPS, and 60 FPS is the target. However, taking a look at the Xbox Series S here, they've got an option for 1440p and 30 FPS. I see no reason why the PS4 and Xbox One, or at PS4 Pro and Xbox One X even, couldn't run the game at 1080p 60 or 1080p 30. I don't understand that, especially on PC when you can tinker around with graphics and run the game at whatever frame rate. So it seems here that one by one, companies that have live service games on the PS4 and Xbox are going to be stopping supporting them. I would argue that it's the end of the line for the PS4 and Xbox One. They've had an incredibly good run and continue to have an incredibly good run even with the current gen consoles out there. But anyways, if you are on the PS4 or Xbox One, I would say maybe is now a time to start looking at upgrading, possibly, or just not play these games anymore. On the flip side though, if you are on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X and S, expect to see reductions in ongoing crash issues through memory-related optimizations. And I would hold them to this. They're saying that's one of the reasons why they're not supporting PlayStation 4 and Xbox One anymore. And if this doesn't hold true, then I would have more questions than anything. And speaking about Xbox, next up is just a friendly heads up that there did appear to be some sort of Xbox issue yesterday with their live services. And I've seen reports that these were issues for like 12 hours. I've seen reports that it was just a few hours, kind of all over the place. So it seems like it's a case-by-case basis or a region-by-region basis. I'm not quite sure. But they did say here, Xbox support acknowledged the issue, and they said, we are aware that users are having issues with creating or receiving party and game invites and messages. Our engineers are on it. And some people were also complaining about live streaming. Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of detail as to what exactly happened. But Xbox support says, good news, our engineers have confirmed that messaging, party, and game invites are up and running once again. So if you were having issues, hopefully they are now solved, and it wasn't just you. Next up here, we're talking about something pretty interesting that I think is going to muddy the waters a little bit in the whole Pokemon versus Palworld lawsuit, and that is Palland. So taking a look on Nintendo Soup here, and they're reporting that Palworld Ripoff Palland launches on Nintendo Switch. And it seems they are right. This game exists on the eShop. So heading over to the eShop, and I can see the game listed, and they do have a trailer for the game, and I would say there are similarities to Palworld and also Pokemon. But taking a look at this one, I don't necessarily think the game looks that great. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below, and if you'd be interested in Palland. In Canada, the game is currently priced at $14 overall. I think it's about $10 US. And yeah, there's a lot of similarities here. I would say this does muddy the water, considering that Nintendo or Pokemon is going after Palworld for copyright infringement, yet they allow this game on their own eShop. Very interesting, and let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. And speaking about interesting and stuff arguably also going to cost a lot of money, next up here we're talking about a new laptop called the Kubuntu Focus Zr Gen 1. And the tagline on this one is maximum portable and power. The laptop itself seems very beefy, but so does the price, in my opinion. However, this laptop is configurable to adjust the price and arguably also adjust the specs. So they say the laptop can host up to 192 gigs of RAM, up to 16 terabytes of storage. It's got an 18-inch 2560 by 1600 display. It features an Intel Ultra 9 275HX processor and up to an RTX 5090. I would say here that this laptop looks amazing. I would say it's extremely attractive for gaming, a complete powerhouse. I mean, it even features a 5-megapixel webcam built into it. This is a beast of a machine, but I would also argue a beast of a price. It starts at $4,095. And that's not with the 5090 GPU. That's with the 5080 GPU. If you were looking at this with a 5090 GPU only, it'll add on an extra $800. That does come with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. And if you really wanted to crank it up, you can get it close to $8,000 overall, over $7,000 easily. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I would say it's an absolutely beautiful laptop, and I'm a huge fan of Linux purpose-built stuff. I guess if price wasn't really a concern and you didn't care how much something costed and you wanted something to be the best that it could be, this one may be up your alley. I don't know here. And speaking about paying for stuff, next up we're talking about PayPal. And I don't necessarily know if this is a brand new breaking thing or if it's been around for a while and I'm just noticing it now. But it's being reported that PayPal is no longer an option for Steam, except for 6 currencies. I'm not necessarily sure if we've talked about this one before. I think we may have, maybe we didn't. But either way here, it's just I'm having trouble recollecting whether or not we did. They say here, in early July 2025, PayPal notified Valve that their requiring bank for payment transactions in certain currencies was immediately terminating the process of any transactions related to Steam. This affects Steam purchases using PayPal in currencies other than the euro, Canadian dollar, Great Britain pound, Japanese yen, the Australian dollar, and US dollar. For full transparency here, I'm in Canada and, well, Canadian dollars are not affected in this, so I haven't noticed anything. But I am curious to hear from you and if these changes have been recent and if they've impacted you. And this is a very interesting comment as well. This person says, pretty wild that buying a digital game in 2025 is harder than in 2005. And speaking about spending money, next up here, we're talking about the average gaming spend per the North American gamer. And it's being reported that North American gamers spend an average of $325 annually, which is a lot less than the $32K we talked about the other day for someone spending on NBA 2K25. Feel free to check out the article for a lot more detail on the matter. I mean, I would recommend checking it out because it's extremely interesting on its own. But I guess here the report found that global market size is $189 billion, up 3.4% year over year, with North America accounting for 28% of that total. On one hand, I would say it's awesome to see that the gaming market is continuing to grow. I mean, obviously I'm biased to that, but at the same time, I think it's great. But on the other hand, it's crazy to think that we're up year over year in the gaming market. Yet gaming companies are shedding people left, right, and center. But not going to go down that path too far. Let's talk about a couple of other things I find interesting. I guess in North America here, 34% of North American players spend money to unlock exclusive content, while 29% do so on personalization and character customization. In Europe, 28% of players prioritize deals and offers, with 21% valuing ad-free experiences. And also here in North America, 27% of players invest in content packs, power-ups, and in-game currencies, and 24% buy subscriptions, and 23% purchase battle passes. So basically around 1 in 4 people are spending extra for stuff like that. Meanwhile, in Europe, it's about 1 in 5-ish. So it's a very interesting study overall, and I guess let me know your thoughts. Next up, we're going from software back to hardware, and this one is super interesting from OneXPlayer. So OneXPlayer have announced the Super X, which is a very high-powered gaming tablet of sorts. I would argue it's just a laptop without an attached keyboard. So anyways, this is going to be powered by an AMD Ryzen AI Max Plus 395, and it's operating at 120 watts. Overall, I'd say this thing seems pretty hefty, and yes, a keyboard can be attached to it. Basically a laptop in my opinion. Anyways here, this tablet looks pretty cool. Unfortunately, I don't have a price or release date just yet, but from my understanding, it's competing against something like the Asus ROG Flow Z13. And last up here, speaking about arguably cool stuff, we're talking about Epic. And it's being reported that Epic has delivered on its promise to fix anti-cheat games so they work on laptops with Snapdragon X CPUs. ARM CPUs. Now, I don't know about you, but I would say this is pretty big for the ARM gaming space in general. They're going to be starting with Fortnite, and that is making the easy anti-cheat tool compatible with Windows on ARM. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.